Dear students, welcome to the 17th session of Histology, Animal Behavior and Applied Zoology paper prescribed by the Mangalore University for 4th semester BSc Zoology. In this session, we shall consider Introduction to Animal Behavior, Advantage of Migration, and migration in fishes. First of all, let us see the definition of migration. In ethology, migration is the regular, usually the seasonal movement of all or part of an animal population to and from a given area. So let us now look into the migration in fishes. Migration of fish is defined as a class of movement which involves a long journey to a definite area for some purpose and impels the migrants to return to the region from which they have migrated. The purpose of the journey is breeding and feeding. There are actually different types of fish migration. Based on the mode how they migrate, they have classified these migrations into various types. The first kind of fish migration is diadromous migration. Diadromous migration can be defined as the migrations that occur in between freshwater and marine environments. So this diadromous type of migration can be further divided into following types. The anadromous migration. Anadromous migrations can be defined as a kind of migration which occurs from sea to freshwater for spawning. That means the adults living in the marine water, salt water, migrate to freshwater for spawning, for reproduction. So this kind of migration is called anadromous migration. Several fishes such as salmons, Atlantic salmons, hilsa of India, paradise fish, flathead fish, sturgeons, etc. migrates through anadromous mode. The second type of diadromous migration is catadromous migration. The catadromous migration can be defined as the journey of freshwater fish to the seas for spawning. So that means the adults live in freshwaters and they move towards the marine water for their reproduction. Common freshwater are European eels, American eels, short fin eels, Indian long fin eels are the best examples for the fishes exhibiting catadromous migration. So the third kind of diadromous migration is called amphidromous migration, which is characterized by the kind of fishes that migrate from freshwater to sea and vice versa. So they move from freshwater to the sea and they come back to the freshwaters again. So this kind of migration is generally not for breeding. It may be for foraging, etc. Okay, mainly for the purpose of foraging. The amphidromous fishes migrate regularly at some particular stage of the life. The marine amphidromy occurs in flathead mullets, which spawn in Indian seas during autumn and early winter, and whose young stage spend a short period in brackish water and fresh water. They are able to survive in ponds with salinity at 87%. After spending in fresh or brackish water, they return to the marine water. So they, spawn in Indian seas, and their young ones generally, migrate towards fresh water or brackish water. And once they are mature, they go back to the marine water. So the second type of migration is photodromous migration. Photodromous migration means the migration of fish that entirely occurs in fresh waters. Some carps and trouts travel long distances in large shoals in search of suitable spawning grounds and return to the feeding areas after spawning. So this migration takes place specifically within the boundary of the freshwater. They won't cross it. In contrast to this, there is another kind of migration called oceanodromous migration, in which the migration of fish is entirely restricted to salt water. They don't come out of it. Many fishes undertake short distance migrations throughout their life, and some fishes like herrings, cod, tuna, and plaice cover long distances in their migration. These migrations may be for food and other things. So in this fish migration, in this session, we shall consider two important fishes which are very well known for their great ability of migration. One fish called eel, European eel, which migrates from freshwater to the sea, and another fish called Hilsa elysia, which migrates from marine water to the freshwater for reproduction. So first let us look into the life history of European eel, which is very well known for its great ability of catadromous migration. The life history of common river eel or European eel, scientifically called as Anguilla anguilla or sometimes Anguilla vulgaris, and American eel, Anguilla rostrata, will represent a clear idea about the catadromous migration. The common river eels of Europe are found along the shores of Europe and inland waters of the countries near the shores of Europe, some of which inhabit in Iceland too, and Mediterranean countries, Black Sea and Red Sea as well. See, the migration of these fishes were the matter of debate for long time. Many people did not know how do they reproduce because they live in fresh waters and nobody got their eggs, nobody got their fingerlings, nothing for several years. And at last, in 1904, an investigation led by Danish ichthyologist John S. Smith started to study about the life cycle of these fishes, and ultimately he succeeded in 1922 to locate the spawning place of these European eels. And it was found in the Sargasso Sea of the Atlantic Ocean. So this is the picture of the European eel. So in the first phase, the yellow colored variety living in fresh water represents the feeding and growing forms. Look at this. This is having some greenish yellow color, and these represent the feeding and growing forms. They generally inhabit the freshwater habitats of Europe, the rivers and ponds and pools which are connected. With the advent of autumn, majority of yellow eels become silvery and prepare to undertake migration forwards the spawning ground, the Sargasso Sea of Atlantic Ocean. The eels in the river spend about 10 to 12 years feeding partially on fish. In the second phase, during the transformation from yellow colored variety to the silver colored variety, you can see here, initially it was yellowish in color. The skin color of the European eel was yellowish, but now it has become absolutely silvery, right? The yellow eels stop feeding. Eyes become greatly enlarged. The snout becomes sharper with thinner lips, and the yellow coloration is replaced by a metallic silvery color. You can clearly see the transformation here. The body color of the eel, which was yellow with some black dots here and there, and some stripes of dark yellow colors, is being replaced by thick metallic silvery color. The silver eels are recognized by having matured organs and shrunken digestive tract. See, we have discussed it in the previous slides that these varieties, the yellow varieties, are voracious feeders. They feed on fish and other things. Hence, their digestive tract and lips are functional. But as they transform from their yellow colored form to the silver colored forms, you can see that the snout becomes more and more pointed, and the lips becomes very thin, and the digestive tract becomes shrunken because they don't eat anymore. Instead, you can see other organs of reproduction fully matured and ready for reproduction. The primary development of gonads is the stimulus for the beginning of migration. The size of the eggs in ovaries changes before migration. These silver eels first migrate down to the mouth of the rivers and then into the Atlantic Ocean. The European eels probably migrate over 6,000 kilometers. Look at the length of their migration. And this migration takes place without any kind of food. Once they stop feeding, then they start migration. So without any kind of food, nothing, no GPS, no tracking system, nothing. They migrate down to the mouth of the ocean by crossing over 6,000 kilometers between its freshwater feeding streams and its spawning ground. The spawning ground is located in the western part of tropical waters of Atlantic Ocean between 22 degrees and 30 to 33 degrees north latitude and 48 degree and 65 degree west longitudes near Bermuda Islands. Spawning takes place from the end of winter to the middle of summer. After the completion of spawning, the parents die. Look at the very curious thing here. Okay, once there is spawning, the parents die. So nobody will be there to guide the developing young ones or the ones which develop to go back to the water. So this is still a mystery. Who guides them back? So this is the pathway of migration. Look at this, the Sargasso Sea is here. And they move all the way from Europe, and American eels move from the inland waters of America. So to somewhere here near the Bermuda Islands. So in the third phase, the eggs are laid in spring at a depth of around 500 to 700 meters, with the temperature ranging between 10 to 12 degrees Celsius. The fertilized eggs float for some time and the young hatch out as the pelagic larvae. The larvae are now called leptocephali. You can see here, this is the larva of European eel called leptocephali. The leptocephali are flat, glassy, and they have a leaf-like body. These tiny creatures are provided with elongated needle-like teeth for feeding. The gut has a straight tubular structure. The eyes are large and silvery. You can see here the conspicuous part in the head is the eyes, very large. They now begin their long homeward journey, so they have to go back to the waters from where their parents have come. At the end of first summer, they became about 25 millimeters in length on an average, are recorded in Western Atlantic. By the second summer, the leptocephali reach Central Atlantic. The size is about 50 to 52 millimeters in length on an average. The third summer, that means of 3 years, they have almost become 72 to 75 millimeters. That means around 7 to 7.5 centimeters in length and reach the continental shelf of Europe. The larvae of eel are passively drifted by warm water current of the Atlantic Ocean. In the fourth phase, during the autumn and winter, on the third year, the leptocephali metamorphose to form elvers or glass eels or young eels. You can see here the leptocephali have transformed now to form glass eels or elvers. During metamorphosis, the larvae stop feeding. Their flattened body becomes cylindrical and the needle-like teeth is replaced by new ones. The old teeth will be lost. The young eels, when become 3 years old, measure about 15 to 20 centimeters in length. Then they congregate in the mouths of the river. Here the elvers or young eels ascend the rivers, grow in size and change their color into yellow. So glass eels now become yellow eels. The males likes to stay in the estuaries and female ascend the rivers in shoals. Shoals means a group of fish, especially at night during the spring to reach a suitable resting place. In the yellow eels, teeth are lost, intestine shortens and the anal aperture moves forward. The yellow eels spend around 8 to 10 years of feeding and growing, and on maturity change into silver eels again and start their perilous journey towards the Sargasso Sea again. The well-fed silver eels first stop their feeding and leaving the rivers, empty into the Baltic Sea and gradually in the abyssal depths of the Atlantic Ocean. So these are some of the photographs of glass eels, which are the metamorphosed elvers. So the next example that we are supposed to study about is the hilsa. Hilsa is a fish that is very well known for its behavior of anadromy. It's the best example to study anadromous migration. Among Indian fish, hilsa or Indian shad represents an example of anadromous migration. Its occurrence is recorded in the coastal waters of Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Myanmar. Its presence in the estuaries, rivers and lakes, mostly during spawning season, indicates its anadromous migration. So upway in the rivers of India, the freshwater habitats of India, you could find these hilsa fish. Hence we can easily claim that this is an anadromous fish. So this is a a picture that shows the migration pathways of Godavari hillside, kind of hillside, okay, where from the Bay of Bengal they move upwards to the inland rivers of Andhra Pradesh. During spawning season, the Hilsa population ascends the rivers of the Hooghly, the Ganges, the Mahanadi, Godavari, and Krishna, and the Kaveri and its tributaries in the eastern region of India, and the Narmada, the Tapti, and the Kali in the Saurashtra coast of the West India. So, in almost all major rivers of east and west, you could find this Hilsa fish, meaning that it will ascend to almost all freshwater rivers during its spawning season. So the life cycle of Hilsa can be divided into 4 phases, which is common for most of the fishes. The first stage, eggs are laid which hatch out as a larva, and in fish it is commonly called as fries, and they grow a bit larger, becoming fingerlings and juvenile stage, and finally they reach adult stage, and adults reproduce again, producing eggs. The size of adults differ in sexes. The females are larger than males. You can see here in this picture. The size of the sexes differ in different seasons, even in the same river. In the Ganges and in the Padma, different sizes of sexes have been reported by different authors. In the Hooghly estuary, the mature female are recorded about 250 millimeters in length. That means they're almost around 25 centimeters in length. The Hilsa is probably polygamous, and its fertilization is external, meaning the fertilization taking place in the water. The riverine stalks of Hilsa become mature between 1 to 3 years of age. The matured Hilsa spawns once in a year, but the time of spawning differs in different parts of India. In Hooghly estuary or freshwater region of the Hooghly River, spawning takes place at the onset of evening, but in Narmada, spawning takes place in the early morning. During upstream migration, schooling behavior among Hilsa is seen, and males move in the upper surface layer of the water, and females move in the deeper water layer in river during monsoon periods. In the spawning ground, both the sexes discharge their gametes in fresh water. The tailed spermatozoa survive a few hours in water, and ova are large, translucent at the marginal zone. The fertilized ova turn transparent after half an hour. The fertilized eggs float in water, and color is about light greenish yellow. The hatched ova transform into larva or fry, and they become 20 to 20 millimeters in length. 20 to 40 millimeters in length. When the fingerlings become about 15 millimeters in size, called advanced fingerling or youngs, at this stage they consume small shrimps and other phytoplankton as food. The early fingerlings of about 80 millimeters are found in lower reaches of the river and estuary zones. The youngs or advanced fingerlings above 150 millimeters in length occur along the fresh foreshore areas of the seas. It means the beginning of the shore areas of seas. So 2 types of anadromous migrations have been reported among the Indian Hilsa species. Breeding or spawning migration is seen during the southwest monsoon, and when the Indian and Bangladesh rivers are flooded by the monsoon rain. Another type is winter or spring migration, which is influenced by the certain changes of the water temperature, rain, mainly seen in the Gangetic Delta. So basically this migration is dependent upon the quality of water. Okay. Different quality of water induce different kinds of migrations. But still they do migrate from salt water to the fresh water. Hence the name anadromous. So this very curious behavior of fishes migrating from one place to another place for reproduction is simply amazing. Without any kinds of clues and cues, in particular the European eels I am referring to, where immediately after spawning their parents die, so there's nobody to tell the newborn young ones to migrate back to their habitat from where their parents have come. And once they go back there, they simply start eating, accumulating all the fat and other things required for long migration again. And who tells them after 8 or 10 years to go back to the Sargasso Sea and lay the eggs there? So this is still a mystery. Some studies believe that it's because of the temperature of the water. Somebody believes it's because of the odor, the smell of the water, etc. But the actual reasons for their migratory behavior is still unknown. Though we conclude that it is because of reproduction, many other fishes which exist in fresh water, they successfully breed there, they never go back to the sea. And those fishes which survive, exist in sea water, they don't come to the fresh water for reproduction. Only few come there, few have this habit of migrating from one place to another place for reproduction. So the guiding force or the stimulus for this kind of behavior is still unknown. If you want to have still more explanations and information about the animal migrations, you can refer these textbooks which are very commonly available in our libraries. Thank you.